I forgot to tell you something. I'm sorry. Actually, I changed the bank account where my salary is deposited. On payday, I was filled with anxiety because no money was deposited from my husband's workplace. Then, unexpectedly, my husband had unilaterally changed the deposit account. To begin with, my husband's salary is small, and I am supporting us financially in most aspects. If my husband's salary was gone, I knew it would be a disaster. Despite this, my anger grew at my husband for forgetting to report such important news. I decided to end our marital life right there based on the reason that he had changed the deposit account without telling me. My name is Catherine, a 31-year-old working housewife. I live in an apartment with my husband, Patrick, who is 5 years older than me. We started dating after meeting at a matchmaking party, and at that time, I thought Patrick looked very mature, and that if I married him, he would protect me. I wasn't right for thinking that, but I think Patrick, who hid the fact that he had debts and married me, was worse. Patrick is the type who can't suppress his desires, and if he saw a watch he liked while on a date, he'd buy it even if it's $1,500. He hardly ever has cash because of monthly credit card payments, but he always said, "I'm a man who rides the wave of the time, so I haven't made cash payments since 10 years ago." So it means that he's been living a life chased by credit card payments for the past 10 years. I want to scold my past self for thinking that he was a mature man when I saw him using the credit card. Since we started our married life, Patrick and I decided to put our salaries into one account. I thought about making it an allowance system, but Patrick only wanted to pay with his credit card, so I decided to give him an allowance of $200 per month. However, when I looked at the actual flow of money, I realized that we couldn't afford to use $200. It's because $700 is withdrawn every month from Patrick's card payments. Apparently, he's doing a monthly fixed payment. Patrick's take-home pay is $1,000, and minus $2,000 was a payment of $700. Life becomes a little harsh considering the future. I was too scared to spend money freely. Despite this, Patrick goes around playing as he pleases and uses his credit card. After marrying Patrick, I was shocked to find that his take-home pay was less than that of new employees at my company. I asked him the name of his company before we got married, and he said he worked for a fairly large company, so I believed him. However, Patrick wasn't completely lying. He worked part-time at a restaurant run by a large company. Moreover, he works part-time at a high-end restaurant and is usually in a suit. I was deceived even more because he looked cool in this suit when we met after work. Even such a person has a credit card limit of $3,000, which is wrong. We were able to have our wedding ceremony because my parents gave us the money, so I didn't know that Patrick was so poor. I should have discussed it more or asked him to show me his pay slip, but it's too late to regret it now. About half a year after we got married, my mother-in-law came to our house. Patrick basically works on weekends and holidays, so I had to handle it by myself. My in-laws were rich because my father-in-law runs a company. Now my brother-in-law is following his father in the business to take over the company. So Patrick is free to do as he pleases without any criticism. My mother-in-law also spoiled Patrick. Well, I don't know what you're thinking, living in such a cheap apartment. Catherine, Patrick isn't the kind of person who should live in a house like this. I was planning to live in a nice apartment after I got married, but things changed. I swallowed the words, especially because of your son, and forced a smile. This is the apartment I lived in before I got married, and Patrick moved in. Patrick and I looked for a condo, and I left the contract to Patrick. However, Patrick did not proceed with the contract. I had already finished the cancellation procedure for my apartment, but I found out that he hadn't contracted the condo during our honeymoon. When we came back from the trip, we hurriedly renewed my contract. The main reason Patrick didn't proceed with the contract was due to financial reasons, so there's no reason for my mother-in-law to complain about us living in this apartment. However, it seems my mother-in-law was not satisfied. Ah, I can't believe my Patrick married such a common woman. My mother-in-law muttered that several times without saying it to anyone, and my anger grew. So I made a sarcastic remark. Well, if Patrick had been earning decent money, we might be living in a nice house by now, don't you think? How dare you speak like that as a wife? It's as if my Patrick is the bad one. I don't know how much you're relying on my Patrick's income. As soon as you're married, you shouldn't interfere with your husband's salary. It's impolite, isn't it? I won't give you a penny of our inheritance. That's not my concern. You think I'm married for money, don't you? I can live on my own. I wouldn't get married for money. I married Patrick because I love him. I glared at my mother-in-law, then she glared back at me. I wonder about that. Anyway, don't rely too much on my Patrick. Patrick is a delicate son. I can't bear to think of him being under the thumb of his wife. She left quickly after saying that. It seems she came to see Patrick, not wanting to spend time with me. I was left alone, and I pondered. I told my mother-in-law that I married Patrick because I loved him, but now I'm not sure if I still love him. Since we got married, various lies have been exposed, and he's not reliable at all. He's reckless with money, yet he thinks he's capable. I realize that he's just a delusional man. Although he used to appear cool before, now he just looks like an unimpressive guy. Can I still say I love him despite all this? Around the time we had been married for a year, Patrick's salary was no longer being deposited into our joint account. I wondered if he had quit his part-time job and was going somewhere every day without telling me. When Patrick came home at night, I immediately confronted him. Hey, where have you been? Huh. At work? Why? Your salary hasn't been deposited. Did you really quit your job? Then Patrick smiled after making a blank face for a moment. I forgot to tell you something. I'm sorry. Actually, I changed the bank account where my salary is deposited. What? What do you mean? I've decided to stop living on credit cards. What? So, I realized that cash is better. As long as I use a credit card, the debt doesn't decrease but rather continues to increase. Considering the interest I'm currently paying, I realized that I was wasting money. You can keep paying for the credit card. Once the payment is over, there won't be any interest. The more Patrick spoke, the more my anger grew. Is there any benefit for me in this? Once the payment is over, you won't have to withdraw $700 every month. It's good, right? You should be the one to pay. I can't. Then I can only spend $250 a month, so please handle the rest. Seeing that I was furious, Patrick already left the house. Marrying that man was the biggest mistake. I was ready to start the divorce process right away, but at that time, I didn't have enough knowledge. I filled in my part on the divorce form and said, Patrick, let's get a divorce, but he refused. Catherine, you're funny. You don't know. You can't just get a divorce that easily, do you? If we're discussing a divorce, we need to have a conversation. We can't get a divorce unless I agree, and I have no intention of agreeing. It's pointless. Even in the case of a mediated divorce, we need to talk it out in court. Mediators will try to persuade us not to divorce. It's time-consuming, and we can't divorce unless I agree. Or are you going to sue? Patrick said this with a smile on his face. I could tell Patrick didn't want to let go of his cash cow, which is me. He must be enjoying the fact that he's using his entire salary as his pocket money and being supported by me. It seems like I'm the only one suffering, isn't it? Patrick not only doesn't contribute financially, but he also doesn't do any housework at all. I think it's wrong that I can't even get a divorce easily. Do I have to continue living this married life? While feeling such despair, I lived a life balancing household chores and work. I wonder how much I haven't been spending on myself anymore. Before getting married, I had many hobbies and lived happily. Will I continue to be exploited by Patrick? Just looking at Patrick's carefree, worry-free smiling face gives me the creeps. I tried to keep my distance from him as much as possible because I didn't want to see his face. 6 months after my first divorce proposal, my mother-in-law came again. That day was a weekend, but due to shift scheduling, Patrick was home. I was working from home and was a little busy. I thought I'd greet her briefly and then continue my work if she came just to see Patrick. However, when I showed my face to greet her, my mother-in-law suddenly pointed at me and started yelling. "What do you think you're doing to my Patrick?" What are you talking about? You're treating him coldly because his earnings are low, aren't you? My son earns $2,500 a month, yet you only have about $1,500. Why are you blaming Patrick? When I stared at Patrick, he was sweating and his eyes were darting around. It seems he told various lies when he was grumbling to his mother, just like he lied to me before we got married. He now seems to be deceiving his mother. My mother-in-law kept complaining to me, trying hard to protect Patrick. To begin with, your job isn't a big deal, is it? Despite that, you don't give Patrick any pocket money, and I heard you're living a luxury life alone. A luxury life? When I looked at Patrick again, he put his index finger over his mouth, indicating not to say anything. It seems like he is flustered and teary-eyed, likely due to being in a state of agitation. Although he lied while complaining and didn't seem to expect his mother to storm in. That's right. It's with your husband down like that, right, Patrick? That Patrick, he blurted out at me. That's right. The good-for-nothing wife should leave. It didn't seem like his true feelings, as the moment my mother-in-law turned her face towards me, he made an apologetic gesture behind her. So I nodded and said something I didn't mean. Understood. I will leave. A woman like me was too good for Patrick. I'm sorry. Glad you understand, but you don't have to leave. For tutors, Patrick. Yes, I see. I will change. I'll be watching to make sure you don't do anything back to Patrick again. My mother-in-law left with a satisfied look. However, inside my heart, a feeling of sadness, emptiness, and an indescribable sense of nihilism overwhelmed me. What was the point of all my sacrifices paying off Patrick's debts? The thought brought tears to my eyes. Even Patrick seemed flustered seeing me cry. "Catherine, are you okay?" "Do I look okay?" "Sorry, really. I think my mom misunderstood because I sort of exaggerated the story. I think she'll be relieved if we can become a good couple from now on. Let's grow together, okay?" "Sure, I still have work to do. Don't disturb me." I opened my laptop, and instead of working, I began searching for law firms. I'd also tried asking online what I should do about my situation. Then various solutions appeared. I blame myself for not taking action until now. If I had known, I might have been able to divorce before being talked down to by my mother-in-law like that. But from now on, I won't be bossed around by Patrick. With that determination, I started preparing for a divorce. Since then, I continued in my life as usual, without showing any signs of anger to keep Patrick off guard. While Patrick was away, I had a moving company give me an estimate and chose a new place to live. I had been living in this cheap apartment to save up for a wedding. Before, for just $150 more, I could live in a nice condo. I don't plan on remarrying for a while, so I'm thinking of getting a pet. I'm sure a pet will be more comforting than being with Patrick. Finally, the long-awaited moving day arrived. I had been gradually sending my belongings to my new house, so the only things I needed the movers for were heavy furniture and appliances. I was frustrated with Patrick, who hadn't even noticed the lack of my belongings. As I was rushing around, Patrick approached me with a bewildered expression and spoke to me. "Is something going on?" "I am moving." "What? I didn't hear about this." "Because I didn't tell you. You don't need to worry. I'm moving out on my own." "Wait a minute. I don't understand." "You don't need to understand. It doesn't concern you. But I've already terminated the lease on this apartment, so you're going to need to find a new place to live." He seemed to finally understand and hugged me. "I'm sorry. Is this because I lied, right? I won't lie anymore. Can you forgive me?" "This isn't about forgiveness. You have the nerve to dump your debt on me and to lie about working at a major company, and even lie to your own mother, making me out to be the bad guy. I can't stand being your wife anymore. I'll have a lawyer contact you. I want to have a divorce." He just stood there in a daze without a word to say. Then he went somewhere and started making a call. I wondered what he thinks will change by making a phone call now. What could he possibly want to do? 10 minutes later, his mother arrived. She seemed shocked as she watched the movers carrying out the furniture. "Catherine, what's going on?" I don't feel like explaining everything to her now. It seems that Patrick hasn't told his mother the truth, and I don't feel the need to explain it to him. "I'm moving. I'm getting a divorce from your son, so you have to hear the rest from Patrick about his current job, his annual income, his debt. Once you hear everything, I would appreciate an apology." "What's going on? Even though it's all your fault, you're blaming Patrick." With Patrick, who had shown some remorse, I was actually considering forgiving him. Wait a minute. I ignored her and saw the movers finish loading. The only things left in the room are his belongings. I grabbed my things, opened the door, and said, "Patrick, you need to leave by the end of the month," and then I stepped outside. I started the car and saw Patrick and his mother trying to chase after me. There's no way they could catch up to a car on foot. At the same time, I saw them both stumble and fall. I couldn't help but laugh. After all the misery they've caused me, seeing them try to chase after me, knowing they can't catch up and then fall over, I had to laugh. I feel like I've laughed for the first time in a while. From now on, I'll live for myself. That's what I think. Later, it seems that Patrick did explain everything to his mother as she called to apologize. "I'm truly sorry. It's because I didn't listen to your side of the story." "Could you please tell me your address?" "No, I don't want you to know where I live." "I don't think it's all your fault. I also think that I should have told you the truth sooner. If you had told me sooner, you might not have had to do worse. I didn't tell you because I didn't think you would side with me. The best you could do was call him a little and try to make us reconcile, right?" Then her attitude changed, and she snapped back. "What? Just because I'm being submissive, you're getting cocky? Don't get carried away. Let's say, what was the purpose of calling me if you're just going to deflect and shift blame? Then there's no need for further discussion. Well then, goodbye." I hung up and blocked her number. After that, I contacted a lawyer and was able to get a divorce smoothly. As soon as I presented evidence that Patrick could not only fail to contribute to the household expenses, but also made me responsible for credit card payments, the divorce was quickly finalized with my husband being found at fault. In consideration of the burden I had shouldered all along, it was decided that there would be no division of assets, and I would receive everything. Patrick should have been able to receive his share of the assets. However, it seems that his father, who I had never been involved with before, was furious with his son. He ordered that everything be handed over to me as compensation for the trouble caused. Aside from that, my father-in-law also reimbursed me for the amount I had paid on Patrick's behalf. I never thought I'd get it back because the couple's property became common property, even if I paid for it. I can only appreciate the kindness of my father-in-law. And it seems that my mother-in-law also faced the wrath of my father-in-law. She has always favored and spoiled Patrick. It seems she was told to live with Patrick alone, and they started living together in a rundown apartment, like the one I used to live in. Finally, she seemed to understand my stress, and the next time she called me from a public phone, she apologized while crying. I won't forgive her for this, but I want her to taste the pain of living with Patrick for a while. Master Patrick, it seems that he exceeded his card limit, and his mother issued a card ban. His salary is also managed by his mother, and his allowance has been reduced to $70 per month. However, he couldn't suddenly change his lifestyle, and it seems that he borrowed money from consumer finance and fell into even deeper debt. I heard that even his mother is starting to give up on Patrick. I sympathize with the lender. Since moving to a pet-friendly condo, I welcomed a cute dog into my life. The dog listens to what I say while running around energetically when we go for a walk, and it's good exercise for me. It's as if I've gained a younger brother, and my life has become richer all at once. My parents started visiting my condo to meet the dog, and I made friends through my dog. Every day is more fulfilling than I could have imagined when I was married. For now, I want to continue enjoying these pleasant days.